Hi, welcome to my video. Second video is on the reflection in the x and y axes. That is the reflection of a parabola in the x and y axes. The basic equation of a parabola is y equals x squared. X and y table of values. X is 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2. So y is equal to x squared. So y is equal to x squared is 2 squared is 4, 1 squared is 1, 0 squared is 0, negative 1 squared is negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. Negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. And we plot, notice 0, 0 is, notice, again, is symmetrical as we move away from the 0, 0 is the vertex. X is 1, y is 1. X is 2, y is 2. And when we move to the left one place, we move to the 1 up. As we move 2 places to the left, we move 4 up. And the parabola is symmetrical on each side. Each side, the parabola has the same coordinates as you move the same distance on each side. So if you move 1 unit to the right or 1 unit to the left, we get a y value of 1. When we move 2 units to the right and 2 units to the left, we get a y value of 4. So the parabola is symmetrical about the y-axis, and the vertex is 0, 0. The vertex of the parabola, basic parabola, is 0, 0. Because when you put 0 in for x, you get y becomes 0 squared, which is 0. Okay, let's look at taking the parabola that we have here now and doing a horizontal reflection. A horizontal reflection reflects in the y-axis. So we're going to take the parabola and flip it in terms of the y-axis. The y-axis is in the middle, so we're going to reflect. The reflection of the parabola y equals x squared in the y-axis. A reflection has the mapping rule of negative x comma y. When we reflect an ordered pair or any graph in the y-axis, we change the x to a negative x. So if we have the basic parabola of y equals x squared, again the table of values is 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2. We square it, we get a 4, a 1, 0, 1, 4. But if you reflect it, x changing to a negative x is a reflection in the y-axis. So if we change the x to a negative x, which is what I'm doing, so the mapping notation says x comma y is mapped to a negative x, y. So the x becomes a negative x. That makes it a negative x times a negative x when you square it. So we get negative x times negative x is x squared. So when we reflect the equation or parabola in the y-axis, we get the same equation because of the squaring here. That means, if you think about it, looking at the table of values, if we change x to a negative x, the y doesn't change. You change x, remember, x is changing to a negative x. So 1 becomes a negative 1, but the y is not changing. So 0 to 0, change an x value to a negative x becomes a 1. The y doesn't change. You change the x, which is negative 2, to a 2. The y doesn't change. And notice that we have the same values. So 2, 4 is still here. 1, 1 is right there. 0, 0 stays. Negative 1, 1 is right here. Negative 2, 4 is here. So this table of values is the same as this table of values. So when we reflect a parabola in the y-axis by changing the x to a negative x in the mapping rule, there's no change in the graph. So really, yes, we can do a reflection, but there's no change. We don't notice any change. So a parabola reflected in the y-axis, the mapping rule is x is changed to a negative x and the y doesn't change. So there's reflecting a parabola in the y-axis, we have no change. The order of pairs stays the same, the graph stays the same, the vertex is still 0, 0. The axis of symmetry down through the middle that splits it into two symmetrical parts is the y-axis. So reflecting in the y-axis on a parabola, there's no change. But let's look at when you reflect a parabola do a vertical reflection. In other words, take the parabola and turn it down. A vertical reflection is a reflection in the x-axis. A vertical reflection is a reflection in the x-axis. Let's have a look at that. Reflecting y equals x squared in the x-axis. So when we reflect in the x-axis, the x doesn't change, but the y value changes. Again, reflecting in the x-axis, the y value changes from a positive to a negative or a negative to a positive. So here's the basic equation of a parabola. Y equals x squared, and again x and y, 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2, and we square it, we get a 4, 1, 0, 1, 4. I have this table memorized, the basic. This is the basic, remember this is the basic equation. So that's the basic equation of a parabola right here. And as a result, we'll look at this graph this now. So x is 2, y is 4, x is 2, y is 4, right there. X is 1, y is 1, x is 1, y is 1. X is 0, y is 0, right there. X is negative 1, y is 1, x is negative 1, y is 1. X is negative 2, y is 2. So, and this is the graph that we have pertaining to the parabola. It's a basic graph of the parabola. So that's the basic equation. This is your basic graph of the parabola right here. And notice in this case, and we're looking at it now, it opens up. It opens up. Notice it's like a cup container going upward. So it's opening up. So both sides are opening up in the air. So let's look at when we reflect it in the x-axis. So when we reflect it in the x-axis, you're making y equal to 0. So when I reflect it in the x-axis, the y becomes a negative. So therefore, I'll multiply both sides by negative 1. So y equals negative x squared. So I'll multiply both sides by negative 1. Positive y, negative x squared. So when the x values, notice, are not changing. So it's 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2. So x is still x, so the x values are the same. But the y values are now changing. So if we put a 2 in here, what happens to the basic graph? If we put a 2 in, we get a negative of 2 squared, which is negative 4. If we put a 1 in for x, we get the negative of 1, which is, notice, it's negative 1. So we have to square first and then do the negative. We have to square first and then do the negative. So we get a negative 1. So we put a 0 in. 0 squared is 0. So the negative of 0 is 0. Now we're going to put a negative 1 in. X is negative 1. Negative 1 is going in the place of x. So we get the negative of negative 1 squared is 1. And now we're going to do negative 2 and square it. Notice we have to square first. And so we square first and we get a 4. So we do the negative of it. So we get a 4. So what happens? Let's look at the graph. Now 2 gives me negative 4, so 2 gives me negative 4 right here. 1 gives me negative 1. X is 1, y is negative 1. X is 0, y is 0. X is negative 1, y is 1. Oh, I had a negative 1 here, but I got a negative 4 here, so I put a 1 and a 4 in. That should be negative. When you take the negative 1 and square it and do the negative up, you get negative 1. Same with the negative 2. Square negative 2, you get a 4. The negative of 4 is negative 4. So, negative 1, x is negative 1, y is negative 1. X is negative 2, y is negative 4. So notice now, when you reflect, here's the parabola. There's the parabola going to the points. Notice this is still the vertex, because what, you got negative 1, you got negative 4. So as you move 1 to the left and right, you still get the same y value of negative 1. As you move 2 to the left, or 2 to the right, you get the same y value of negative 4. So in this case, it opens down. Notice both sides are going down. So it's reflected in the, when you take a parabola and reflect it in the x-axis, that's positive. Notice that's a positive x squared. It opens up. And now it's a negative x squared, so it's going to open down. And notice the vertex didn't change. The vertex is still, it didn't change. And the vertex on this one, vertex right here is 0, 0. So the vertex, it just flipped over. So the parabola just flipped over and went down here. When you reflect in the x-axis, the parabola, the y values change. So it went from a 4 down to here to be negative 4. It went from a 1 to here to be negative 1. So notice these x values, y values up here, the x values are not changing. The x values are not changing. So that's a 2, 2, 4. So that's a 2, negative 4. Only the y values are changing when you reflect in the x-axis. And you still, notice you have the parabola still split into the right side and a split into the left side. The parabola reflected in the x-axis. When the parabola is reflected in the x-axis, the mapping rule gives you x, comma, negative y. So reflecting in the x-axis, the parabola opens down. So again, y equals x squared, positive, opens up. Whereas y equals negative x squared, it opens down. Notice the difference. Opens down. So that's reflecting. Remember, you reflect, just to recall, if you reflect the parabola in the y-axis, there's no change. When you reflect the parabola in the x-axis, the y-coordinate is changing from a positive to a negative. That's the y value in front of the x squared. If you like my video, click the like button, the subscribe button, and notification bell. Visit my website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. And that's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.